The people who are tasked with protecting schools met in Aurora this week for the National Association for School Resource Officers Conference. This comes as the nation is dealing with even more school shootings, an outcry for a lack of police involvement. The executive director, Mo Kennedy, is joining us live. Thank you so much. You were saying there was 1,500 people that showed up to this?
1,500 attendees, yes, yeah. Absolutely.
National and Colorado, right?
Yes, from all over the nation, and we had international attendees as well.
You know, obviously, school safety is so top of mind, especially here in Colorado. What should families be expecting to see come out of this that they may see implemented at their schools?
Yeah, I think I look at our keynote sessions that we had, and certainly one of our keynotes is Dr. Bernie James, who really brings important information about school law, some of the legal updates within schools around all areas of what happens on a school campus. So, and part of that, we call it school safety law. So it's really looking at what are the things we can do on the campus legally to make it safer. And so I think that, first of all, parents would see our attendees are so inspired after this week and ready to get back to school and protect students and staff. And so I think you'll see these attendees returning more inspired than they probably have been in some time.
You know, one of the issues we've been covering here in Colorado is SRO treatment of minority students. Was that brought up at this conference, and what came out of that conversation? That's
something that's a constant thread within our organization. We have a significant block on implicit bias, diversity. We also look at that from a standpoint of adolescent brain development and certainly how that affects everything. So we're certainly always engaged in that conversation and training. And our members over the last several years have embraced that training, and I think they've learned a great deal from it. One of the things we have to look at is when those studies or surveys are done around school-based policing, is were those officers carefully selected, and are they specifically trained to work in a school environment? It's the most unique assignment that any law enforcement officer will have, and so we have to take great care in all of these matters.
And take care of who's being hired for those positions.
Absolutely, it's critical, and it's something that we have preached from day one.
You know, one of the things that I just started doing a story with John McDonald, one of our top school security, I know you know him as well, is talking about coming up with plans for kids with special needs who are not always included, you know, in a school safety plan. What was that conversation like, and can families expect to see something different with their kiddos?
I became an SRO in 1999, and the most important block that I learned from was the block on special needs students. And so it's certainly something we carry into every bit of training that we do, that's a unique group of students. And it's kind of interesting that there are many of those students that are very drawn to our officers. And so, you know, those are, for some officers, those are some of the first relationships they develop in a school environment. But certainly there are, you know, concerns that we should have around students with special needs, and having that understanding. SROs are not going to become experts in special needs and special education. That's not what we intend to do, but to at least get them to a point that they have an understanding of the concepts around that, so we can even be helpful in de-escalating situations if we understand that better.
You know, would a part of it be also being a part of, you know how like some kids have an individualized education plan? If you develop an individualized safety plan, could an SRO be a part of that during an emergency?
Yeah, and you know, that's a tricky thing in terms of IEPs and how much play an SRO has into that. And it's interesting how the courts look at that sometimes in terms of viewing the SRO as a school official. And certainly with that safety plan around that, there are things that the SRO needs to know and needs to understand. For instance, if we see a special education teacher struggling with a student, many times they've got that handled, and we need to be careful not to rush in and disrupt that. Those types of things are important to understand.
Yeah, I think there's so many important conversations that are happening that are impacting our families directly here. So thank you for taking the time to share, you know, what happened this week and the conversations we had. We really appreciate it, Mo.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.